I'm adjusting. Uh, Loving these Black Twitter cracks me up. All right, everybody, welcome to tonight's Bonnet Chronicles. It is March the 12th, 2021, and I am Denise Walker, aka Kalari Gamer Chick. Tonight's topics is miseducation of macroaggressions. Hey, Silent, how are you tonight? Now, for those of you that don't know, Axiom is going to be here for a bit, so you'll probably. He said he's going to behave, so he'll be in the chat, but he's actually physically here as well.
I will never behave! You are not the boss of me!
Yes, I am. But, yeah. You'll see. As you can tell, I'm in a better mood because Axiom is here and it's been nice. So, the topic I'm going to be talking about. The topic I'm going to be talking about is serious, but I am in a better mood. So, hopefully, I'll be a lot clearer on the points I made, even though I'm smiling. This is not always a topic to smile about. We're going to be talking about macroaggressions because I don't think a lot of people understand that it all builds up. It's like a bucket. And when you fill a bucket up with stuff, it's going to tip over. And I know a lot of people aren't living under a rock. You know what went down with the Oprah Winfrey interview with Meghan Markle and the former Prince Harry. I feel like people don't understand just how affected somebody can be by racist macroaggressions or homophobic macroaggressions or any kind of prejudice, comments, jokes, insults. It all builds up. I mean, I think there's a disconnect for some folks who either they're not around it or maybe they've laughed at it or done it themselves. They don't think about how the person who's the target of it feels. So that's going to be the main topic tonight. I'm also going to talk about the scumbag roundup because I really think we're starting to get to the era where guys like Rush Limbaugh, who who bit the dust last month, and Pierce Morgan and Bill O'Reilly, all these angry, aggrieved white men who just want to stoke fear, their days are numbered. And I'm happy about that. But I'm going to start this off by talking about the stimulus. Biden has shown that he wants to get to work. The man has barely been president for 3 months, and he's already passed the new stimulus and relief act. He's putting out the child tax credit that people will be able to get before tax time. He is doing his job and working hard. And he also showed everyone that he does not need the GOP. And I seen that earlier some media were dinging him on having a rose garden gathering with the senators who supported him and did not invite anybody in the GOP. And it's like, why would he invite people who didn't want to do the work? We're not going to keep playing these games with the Republican Party. If they want to stalemate, if they want to act like stalwarts to white supremacy, they are going to be left behind as we move forward in progress. And the media needs to get it together as well. Because all these, we need to be tougher now. When they spent 4 years letting the last administration run roughshod over them and whining that they're getting ratioed for being imbecilic, is not going to fly. I'm telling you right now, I do not give clicks or views to any media publication that play these kind of games because it's not worth it. I'm not going to keep supporting them and their endeavors to spread misinformation and to depress voter turnout. Because that's my greatest fear. And that is our greatest obstacle is people getting complacent because of how hard the Biden administration is working and forget that state and local elections are vital to making sure that we do not end up where we were last year. We have lost 539,000 people, and the number is rising still. And even though we are getting vaccinated at a great pace, and Biden has said by the summer he is hopeful that more than 100 million Americans will be vaccinated, there are still people who aren't following the mask mandate. There are still people who aren't protecting themselves. So you have to do your part to be safe, to mask up, to get vaccinated if you can. Don't listen to the idiots on Twitter. There's some tool bag earlier talking about why is anybody under 40 getting vaccinated? I was like, do students not exist? Do teachers not exist? Disabled people, frontline workers, fast food and retail workers alone, there are plenty of them that are under 40 that have been risking their life all last year and into this year to make sure that we get our stuff and are in comfort. All the Amazon workers, people who work in factories all over this country. Don't put pressure on people's psyches that they don't need. It's already hard enough living under a global pandemic. You don't need to shame somebody for doing what they need to do to be healthy. And I'm just so sick of Twitter's judgmental mentality. If it doesn't directly affect you, mind your business. It don't cost anything for you to mind your business. What does it bother you if somebody under 40 gets their vaccine if they're helping to lessen the spread of COVID? And that in itself is a macroaggression. When you get on and you, just to get a bunch of likes, say something like that, it's ageism. So you're saying that only a certain age group deserves to be protected from COVID? We all deserve to be protected from COVID. And I don't know who that guy was. Another blue check. This is why I'm not pressing Twitter to ever verify me. I don't want that. Because I see that other blue checks, they just get this attitude about them like everything they say is worth it. And a lot of them are just talking out their ass. And I don't want to be a part of that. You're in trouble. You know that? And the media does miss that. I love that I can watch a press conference with Jen Pulaski. I want to make sure I get her last name right. And actually know that I'm not getting BS. I couldn't watch any of Trump's spokespeople, even when it was Sean Spicer. I prefer watching Melissa McCartney's version of Sean Spicer because not only was it funny, but it was so accurate, it was scary. It's nice seeing people who tell the truth, who aren't just here to stroke the president's ego, and who are getting the work. I like being able to go to sleep at night and not waking up knowing that we could be in nuclear war or being owned by Vladimir Putin. It is very nice to have normal. But what sucks is we are still in the middle of people to the right who are full-on quality drinkers and people to the far left who are still mad that Bernie's not going to give them all the free stuff he promises. And it's very frustrating to be at this moment because it's a good place. We have Black Twitter has me rolling because I was reading the whole Stimmy hashtag and all these people talking about how they're going to roll up when that stimulus hits. And if you're like me, you're getting your income tax back soon as well. So there's going to be a lot of money coming into the houses of lower income people, poorer people who we spend. We spend and we boost the economy by spending because A, we got bills to pay, we've got kids to feed, we've got clothes to buy, and we couldn't do that for a year because a lot of us were struggling just to keep our roof over our head and food in our bellies. We didn't have extra to spend on excess things. And I can tell you, as somebody who's worked in several different jobs and fields, the best time for spending, especially in retail, is this time of the year because a lot of times people get their refunds and they decide, I'm going to buy stuff for the house, I'm going to buy clothes for myself, I'm going to buy things for my kids because I have that extra. So what Biden's doing is very smart, and we need to back that because it's not the people who have a bunch of money that's spending. They hoard it. We've seen that. They give themselves tax breaks and run off with the PPP loans that could have been helping small businesses. And they've been hoarding the resources for far too long. And the only way we are going to make sure that Trump's damage isn't generational is to have smart people in there that know how to keep our economy going. And that is why I am so grateful to the Biden-Harris administration, because people forget, even though Kamala was a prosecutor and had a law degree, she also has a degree in economics. So I know that she's going to be behind a lot of the good packages that are on the pipeline for us to have from this administration, including that child care credit, because she's been wanting us to have a UBI for a while without us having to give up certain benefits for those who are on Social Security or disability. That was a problem that I told people who kept pushing for Yang. He put forward a UBI program, but that did not work for people who are on disability. His plan would require the choice between them, and for some people, you get more on disability than what his UBI offered, and he wasn't making any concessions towards that. Because a lot of people just view things with a blanket brush. But I'm going to get to the main topic because, like I said, I can go on forever about stimulus. I'm just happy to have a government that is working for its people again. We haven't had that for 4 years. It's good that we have it. But the serious topic for tonight is macroaggressions. And it's important for you to understand what macroaggressions is, because it's not the in-your-face racism that a lot of people think it is. It's casual comments, like when you see a black person and you go, "Oh, your name's exotic." I know to some people that seems like a compliment, but my name's my name, and I don't want to hear how it sounds so foreign and exotic to you. It makes me feel like a different person. When you ask a person who's in a multi-ethnic relationship, "Well, what color do you think your baby's going to be?" They literally had a test back in the day, along with a whole other bunch of racist and eugenic things, but it was called the paper bag test. And I know about this test because I have a multi-ethnic family, and the stuff you hear from people who marry into black families would floor you. But the paper bag test was, if your partner was lighter or around the same shade as those old paper lunch bags, you might get a pass for being with them. But any darker, yeah, that wasn't going to work for families. And it's not just white families that had that paper bag test. Asian families have it. Indigenous families have it. There is a lot of anti-black and very deep colorism that goes on in several cultures. So when Meghan Markle, the pain you could see in her face on that interview, when she said that somebody approached her husband asking, "Well, what color would their son come out as?" What doesn't matter is the normal reaction. But you gotta realize there are people that literally in this day and age still think like that. And what I keep trying to tell people is, we can't keep excusing people because, oh, it's just their generation. Oh, it's just their age. My grandmother grew up in a time where Jim Crow literally was seeing people hanging from trees. You're so silly, dear. Where lynching was put on postcards. So she had very strong feelings about multi-ethnic relationships. But she, like every other person in this day and age, started to realize that the kids are going to do what they're going to do. And I always had boyfriends of different ethnic backgrounds. It's just the guys who asked me out. And the thing with her was, when I had kiddo, that was her baby. I cannot imagine somebody calling my son a chimp or asking about his skin tone around her and her not cutting them. And for me to sit there and see people trying to defend the royal family for not only stripping Archie of any potential titles, because he's not officially a prince, and they made that clear to them, allowing the media to put out stuff like that horrible chimp insult, which they try to say, "Oh, it was just a joke." That's not a joke. every single attack on Meghan Markle and then on that baby, that innocent child, and nothing from the Queen. But let me tell you, had it been one of William's four, because I think they're up to four now, the royal family would have had a field day attacking the press, suing the press. So there is a distinct difference in how they handled Harry and Meghan versus William and Kate, and definitely a difference in how Prince Archie, because he's a prince as far as I'm concerned, is being treated versus the other royal grandchildren. And that is a macroaggression. And I think people need to understand that. It doesn't seem like a big deal to you because, oh, Harry isn't going to be in line for the king anyway. If you knew royal history, you know there's no guarantee of that. The only reason why Queen Elizabeth is where she is because her father's brother abdicated and he was put into the role. And he left the position because he wanted to marry a divorcee. Just a little bit of British history for you. And for people to act like racism is just an American thing, where do you think we got it from? Colonization came from the UK, and they didn't just do it in America. They did it in the Caribbean. They did it in India. They did it all over the place. All the stuff that we learned about slavery, we held on to it a bit longer than we should have. That all came from England. And they ain't let go of their prejudice either. And I just loved it when people from Britain would go, well, we don't call ourselves Black Britons or this Britons or that Britons. We just call ourselves Britons. Yeah, as you look down on anybody who's darker than you. You can save that pretense. I'm wise enough to know that there's racism in Britain because I know who sponsored the ships that put my people in shackles and who also sent people over that slaughtered my other ancestors. Because I think some people forget that some of us that are black, we're not just mixed with slave owners and slaves. Some of us have indigenous roots as well. And these are the same people who justified taking my grandfather from his tribe and telling him that he has to be a good Catholic and then disowning him when he married a black woman. Microaggressions build. When you go and you work on a job and you're the only black or brown person in the office and you got to hear, oh, you want to hear a joke? And then they tell this horrible racist joke. Oh, it's just a joke. When you feel pointed out at every meeting, oh, we're diversified, there's Tim there. She represents the black coalition. Some of the things that people think are just innocent comments. The fact that I couldn't be angry when somebody did something on the job that made me stressed out because it didn't have to be, because I didn't want to be risked at being called aggressive. Knowing that anybody in the secretary pool could turn their tears on me. And I had somebody do that because she got something wrong. And I told her, look, this is not calculating right. She turned waterworks like I had attacked her. That is the kind of racist macroaggressions that build. And with somebody who already had mental health issues but didn't get help for it until far later, it just built and built. And it just weighs on your mind and your soul. Exactly. They did. I'm telling you. Queen Victoria, the whole British aristocracy is just full of twists and turns. So people can't even say, well, Harry wasn't in line for the throne anyway, so it doesn't matter. It matters because his family turned his back on him for marrying a biracial black woman, for having a mixed son, instead of coming together and being a tight-knit family. And you've seen the same aggression that they had with his mother. She might not have been a black woman, but they treated Diana like the black sheep of the family. And they got on her for every little thing. And it builds. When you see how women are treated in society by just hateful, harmful people, it's stressful. And then you think about the LGBT. Having 4 years of a government that was targeting whether you could serve, whether you could adopt, whether you could hold a job, whether you could get married. It wasn't that long ago that Ken Davis was literally holding up legal marriages because I don't feel like that goes for my faith. That is not your job. And if you can't do your job, move to somewhere that will keep more in line to your bigoted beliefs. But you're not going to hold up people's marriages because you just don't like it. That stuff builds. I'm not saying that everybody has to think alike. We are not the Borg. There are plenty of things that people do that I will never understand. I will never try to wrap my mind around because it's not for me. But if it is not directly hurting me or minding my business and shutting the fuck up is 100% free. And people just, I wish more will understand that. And the Meghan Markle thing should have opened up more dialogue about microaggressions and macroaggressions because there's a difference. Microaggressions are just little itty bitty nitpicky things that build on top of the blatant racism. Like when you got people on social media hiding behind hammer and sickles asking, well, what is really systemic racism? Okay, fools, you want to play this game? Systemic racism is an institution that models itself in us versus them. As long as we have ours, we'll give them a little bit, but we won't let them hold any kind of real power. We don't want them in our neighborhoods. We don't want them making a certain amount. We don't want them educated properly. And if they die, they die as long as the law protects us. That is what systemic racism has been doing in America since its founding. It went from calling us cattle to saying, okay, you're humans, but you're a bit less than. And we're going to keep laws that make sure you know that you're less than. We're going to put you in areas that we will make sure that you are redlined into. But then we're going to turn around because it's cheaper to live in those areas and displace you from that. Because we don't care about your humanity. That is what systemic racism does. And you can't buy your way out of it. Because I'm telling you right now, as a black person, I will speak on behalf of us all and say that if we could buy bigotry away, we would have been crowdfunded that shit. It don't matter how much money you have when people see you as less than human. It only makes them angrier that we have. I have gotten into it with so many men, especially on Twitter, who seem to think that black women shouldn't be as educated as we are. We shouldn't be as outspoken as we are. We shouldn't have anything. And you can see it in the way they went after Kamala Harris when she ran and how they're trying to trash her now because they know that she has a potential path to being president. Systemic racism is the reason why we haven't had another black woman since before Shirley Chisholm make a serious bid for the presidency. Because we aren't raised to think in that sort of way. My mode of life for the longest time has just been survival. Survival and protection. So I can't even imagine what it will be like 50 years from now if we could really focus on systemic racism and systemic hatred in general. Because while systemic racism to me is the worst, there is systemic misogyny that really needs to go. There's systemic homophobia, transphobia especially, that needs to go. And it's always heartbreaking seeing, especially older actors like John Cleese and William Shatner, and seeing people who used to be respected like J.K. Rowling have these horrible opinions on people who already live a life where society judged them as less than. Pile on there, use their voice to bring more micro and macroaggressions to people who are already going through it. And this is why I use my voice to stand up for people. I don't like TERFs. I don't think anybody should speak on my behalf as a woman telling a trans woman that they're not women. And if you're a lesbian TERF, I just want you to explain to me how somebody who can understand society hating you for who you love, turning around and hating somebody for who they are. Make that shit make sense. because I stay on the black community for their anti-LGBT mentality. I have told several young black mothers, especially on social media, don't be your child's first bully. If they're gay, you love your child no matter what, because they're going to need you. How can you, as a marginalized person, turn around and put that same pressure, that same stress, that same dehumanization on somebody else's shoulders and think that's okay? It's not okay. And we have to stop having acceptable allowances of this. Exactly. That is so perfect, Silent. I can't understand it either. Silent just said, I cannot understand how anyone who lives with the boot on their necks to want to see someone else live that way. And that is what I've told people all the time. I could have let everything I went through as a child and as a teen twist me. I heard every crazy thing. Oh, you're too dark. Oh, you're too fat. Because fat people go through a lot of macroaggressions as it is as well. Oh, you're too this. You're too that. Oh, you're a woman. You're not strong enough. You're not this. You're not that. I could have let that twist me. I literally had a former NYPD police detective threatened to firebomb my house and got a conspiracy group together. And the only thing that stopped him was those people realized he was serious and turned his ass in. Literally was going to burn down a house with women and children in it because he didn't want us in his neighborhood. I had every freaking reason to turn into the monster that people wanted me to be, but I realized I didn't want anybody to feel that way. You imagine coming home from school at 14 years old. Everything in your world is just pretty much simple. Seeing detectives sitting on your couch, and their first question to me was, hey, you know that guy from up the road, which I really didn't because I didn't talk to him. Have you ever started anything with him? Have you ever said anything smart to him? And I was like, no, I don't even know who he is. I knew he had ducks because geese. One honked at me once in the middle of the night when I was coming home and scared the crap out of me. But I had no dialogue with that man whatsoever. But the way they questioned me was the same question that I got at 14 when I was attacked. It's always, what did we do to them? It's like, I'm a 14-year-old girl. I'm only 5'3" now as an adult, so you can imagine how short I was back then. And these guys are asking me questions like I started something with this neighbor who I never really talked to, who literally wanted to firebomb me out of my house. Very funny there. And it's just, oh, Brandon, I'm sorry, it was you. Thank you. Thank you for that silence. It was Brandon with that. And for real, it kills me that even when they realized that this dude was taken it to a level that he shouldn't have taken it to, it was still, let's see if the black child started with this white guy to get him to that level of angry. That's what I grew up with. On top of working in the corporate field that constantly had not only sexism, but racism and all kinds of just stupid shit that you had to internalize because you didn't want to lose your job. But it builds up. And I could see it on Megan's face as she was letting them know what she could let them know without completely burning their bridges, because I think she was measuring how much she wanted to give out there without damaging Harry's potential contact to his family. But even the little bit they gave, Prince Charles is acting like a bitch. And it's just like, I really hope that Harry sticks to his guns, stays with his family, and they just live their best life, because that is the best revenge they can have. Just like his uncle did with Wallace Sanford, he needs to take his wife, his son, their daughter that's on the way, and just live their best life and be loved here in the U.S., because it's obvious to me that the UK is not ready to let go of their traditional racism. And they don't like that people are shining lights on that. As you can see, I had highlighted some of this stuff, like Sharon Osbourne. Now, you know this lady. Hey, Skillet, how are you? And hey, Brandon, I should have said hello to you, too. It kills me that Sharon Osbourne, of all people, who knows her house is definitely not clean of anything, can get on and go on about what's not racist, who's not racist. Mind your business and shut up, Sharon. You are literally married to a guy who bit freaking live animals' heads off. I think the less attention you draw on yourself for who and what's not racist, the better. I would believe that Ozzy wasn't racist over Sharon. Sharon gives off strong Karen vibes, as far as I'm concerned. And now people are coming out against her. Defend the racist, you're going to get it. Holly Robertson Pete just came out saying that Sharon said she was too ghetto for a CBS show, and it's like, that's a microaggression. What the fuck is ghetto? If anything, if you knew history, there were plenty of white people, Spanish people, Asian people living up in the ghettos in New York. It is not a black thing. And that's why I stopped using that in my vernacular. Because when I was young, I was like, oh yeah, I can get ghetto. I lived in a house. I lived in the suburbs of Staten Island. So I'm not going to play that. I'm not going to fake that funk. And if we can be honest, Holly Robinson Pete is nowhere near ghetto. It's just ridiculous, the stupid things that people say about black people that they think they can get away with because it's just a microaggression to them. But microaggressions build up and they lead to macroaggressions because even the most supposedly benign stereotype can lead to a whole misunderstanding of a culture of people. And I think people don't understand that even being black is multifaceted. There's no one way, no proper way to be a black person. We're everywhere. And we have different cultures. And Africa is not one country. It is a continent of different countries with different rights and different cultures, which I'll be talking about again tomorrow when I tape A Witch's Path. I think people love to just categorize and stuff people into what they vision them in, and it always blows their mind that we're not like this. And I think that if we stop allowing these little levels of prejudice to go unnoticed or unchecked, we can stamp out the bigger macroaggressions. But it takes us seeing stuff like, oh, well, what color will your kid be? Or as I had to go through with kiddo, because he didn't have, and even now his pigment isn't really dark, but when he was little, like most black babies, and I know a lot of people don't realize that, I wasn't born this color. When I came out, they used to tease, oh, she's going to be red bone or high yellow because we literally don't develop pigment within the first few weeks after we're born. But my kid, because he's mixed, he didn't have a dark pigment at all to him. And I had people ask me, was I babysitting my own child? And I snapped once because I was at, I think it was a Costco with my son, and I was holding him, and James was a good baby, but this older white lady just comes up and was like, "Oh, he's so cute. This might hire you watching him?" And I know she thought it was an innocent question, but it was a dumb question because my grandmother was like, "No, that's my grandson," and me, I was like, I just yelled, "I fucked the white guy," and I picked James up and I walked away because I was just so frustrated. And this was in South Carolina, so people will be like, oh, well, South Carolina, you don't be surprised. But it happens everywhere. I have plenty of friends who are black fathers of multi-ethnic children who have had to deal with the question, is that your child? Taking them to doctor's visits, taking them to the store. I had a family in Florida where the father was white and his children were half white, half black, and the girls were brown. And this white lady called the cops on him for being with his children. And it's like, who does that? Mind your business. If the children aren't in distress, why are you following around any dude that's with his children? But these microaggressions that people feel they're entitled to stem from racism. That a white man can't be with a brown woman and have kids with her, so obviously he's kidnapping his own children. That a black woman couldn't have a systematically, it's more likely for me to have kids of different skin tones because my skin tone is muddled. I have ancestry that is so mixed up, it is crazy. So I just want people to educate themselves so that they can stop doing these little stupid racist and bigoted things, because that stuff dehumanizes us. I don't want to feel like I'm a less than human being. And I know people want to say, oh, it's just a joke. We can't say nothing anymore. Everybody's too sensitive. And it's always the people who aren't picked on for things. I know that for some people, you might have grown up knowing exactly who you are, what you believe in. You have that confidence of faith. You didn't go through life being hated for existing. And I noticed that a lot of people who have been bullied, a lot of people who are outside the norm, we tend to understand that we don't like this, so we don't want to do this to anybody else. And it's not always that way, because I think that we don't have the power dynamic too as well. And I think that some people that do have the power dynamic, especially certain men that go into law enforcement, twist it. But for the most of us, especially if we've come from like abusive childhoods, especially, we don't want people to feel the pain that we've gone through. And that's one of my driving things. Life is too short. I don't want to spend however much longer I have on this earth making somebody else miserable. But I'm not afforded that same luxury. And it shows. It shows when even talking about bigotry is met with, well, not all, not me, or why you got to talk about that? You're playing a race card, you're playing this card. There ain't no cards, man. This is my life, and it's not a game. It's not a game that I can't trust my kid being outside with a toy because he could get shot in his own neighborhood. It's not a joke that a police wellness check could end up with everybody in my family, which right now is just me, Axiom, and my son, gone from an overzealous cop. It is not a game that so many of us are left out of a system that's meant to celebrate and embrace every American. We are citizens. We should have due process. We should have access to education, healthcare, and decent housing. And it shouldn't be revolutionary for me to say that. And I don't want to be a revolutionary because history has shown y'all murder us when we are that way. So please, if you see a microaggression and you are not a target of it, speak up. Because the more voices that join us to say it's not okay, the less these people feel emboldened to be transphobic, to be homophobic, to be racist, to be anti-religious, or to be anti-atheist, or to be bigoted in any way, shape, or form. Because right now they've had 4 years of being able to be a little bit more bold with their nonsense. And now they're starting to feel backlash and wanting to call it cancel culture instead of the consequences of their actions. And we can't let them take the narrative and call it that. It is not cancel culture if you're a sexist pig that can't keep your hands to yourself, whether you got a D or an R by your name. It is not cancel culture if you say racist or homophobic things and people don't want to buy your product or eat your pizza or watch your movies. If you don't want to be canceled, stop being a disgusting human being. Because you don't get consequences when your actions aren't shitty. I'm so sick of people not understanding that. If I do something bad, I'm not going to blame my illness for it. That is me as a human being choosing to do something bad. That is not my illness, and I'm not going to use that as a scapegoat. And I'm sick of people doing that too. Because there are millions of us living with mental illness, not out there causing racist or homophobic or horrible macroaggressions against people. I mean, it's not an excuse if we did. There should be no acceptable forms of bigotry. There should be no excuse we can use to say, oh, well, that person's unwell in the head, so that's why. I don't care if racism does become a declared mental illness. You could put that on the ICM-9, or they're probably up to 12 now. I went to school back when it was 10 or 9 or 10. I don't care if they make it an official mental illness, because you know what? Homosexuality used to be listed as an official mental illness as well. So we can't go by that. All I know is that it is not an excuse, and we can't keep having acceptable levels of hate. Because if we keep having acceptable levels of hate, we are never going to conquer it. And it's always going to crop up and cause more strife for the people that it targets. And there's a group that used to really profit off of this hate that I'm thankful that will hopefully go the way of the dinosaurs soon. And that is the next topic, what I want to call the scumbag roundup. We have plenty of Fox News pundits that are still in the job, like Hannity and Tuckhead Carlson, but they ding guys like Bill O'Reilly, who got a little bit too handsy, Rush Limbaugh, who's now worm bait, and now Piers Morgan, who once again tied to Meghan Markle. That man spent the last few years just being a bully because she denied him access. He went from being her number one fan when he thought, oh, I'd have easy access to interviews with her, to being one of the most virulent bullies of her character. And then when somebody brought it up to him in his last air on Good Morning Britain before he stormed out like a big baby, he couldn't take it. So it is time to retire that entertainment archetype of this angry, straight white man who is sexist, racist, homophobic, and who does nothing but use his platform to spread fear and us versus them towards people of color, towards women. I am so sick of seeing these men make lucrative careers off causing divides that we don't need right now. And they're the reason why people go, oh, we can't save the older generation. That's just their way. It'll die out. It won't die out because who do you think listens to these guys too? And it's not just men like Piers Morgan and Rush Limbaugh. You've got guys like Joe Rogan who's making the career because he's seen the path to that profit. You had guys like Alex Jones before he went completely batshit crazy and is now getting sued into oblivion. And even though he's telling people, I was just playing a role, I don't even believe half that stuff. He knew it was profitable to be a harmful, hateful person because it feeds that energy some people have. They want that justification of feeling better than people they know they're really not better than. And we've got to stop allowing this to be okay. Yes, he did. He got dragged for filth. And then I seen, it was funny, somebody dubbed over the gentleman's voice who dragged Piers with a Jamaican accent. And it was even better. So I don't want to go digging for it because the studio is still, I'm still getting used to it. But if you see it, you'll love it. It is hysterical. But Piers deserved that because he's another one. He didn't just attack Meghan Markle. I remember when it was, I believe, not the guy who played Wolverine, but he was the other man in the movie, the one that played Sabretooth, was walking around carrying his son in one of those carriers that you have for infants. I used to wear one for my son, and I think any man would wear it because it actually leaves your arms free to do stuff while you're holding your baby. But Piers Morgan, oh, men are losing their manliness by wearing these child holding things. When are men going to be men again? That kind of misogyny needs to die. There is nothing wrong with a father holding their child in a child safety harness while they're out and about. But that's the kind of nonsense that Piers Morgan puts out there so that other misogynists can go, well, I don't want to even watch my child. That's not my job. I just pump in my wife and she spits them out and takes care of them. That mentality is pushed by people like freaking Piers Morgan. And I'm so glad that he will no longer be on Good Morning Britain. But don't count that ridiculous man out because there's always a platform that scum like him can find. And that's why I'm hoping that he has pissed off enough people worldwide to where he will no longer have a lucrative career. He might not be completely gone, but he will not make the kind of bank that he used to if things turn out the way they need to. It's just frustrating that I even have to say stuff like this because they've been such a household fixture for so long that people are used to them. You know, people are used to men like O'Reilly and Limbaugh and Hannity. Oh, they're just stirring up stuff. And even the little flip flopper guy, I forget his name, but I can see him clear as day. He had white hair, used to use the chalkboards to write down stupid stuff. I don't think Piers was ever human. I think he's like a Cylon in human skin. He's just a horrible person, but he's not. He's just a drop in the bucket of these disaffected, angry white males who use their platform to spread hate. And they're all over Fox News. Alex Jones made a career of it. You got Sank Erk doing it with the Young Turks, but they call themselves progressives. That whole white grievance. Yes, thank you, Silent. Glenn Breck. It is just so. Yeah, I'm a nerd, Brandon. You're gonna hear a lot of geek references. I love Battlestar Galactica, and it's just like I feel like these people they disguise themselves as pious males who believe in God and believe in the UK way for Piers or the American way for O'Reilly, and all they care about is lying in their pockets. So they're definitely like a Cylon or a Skrull. They're not human beings as far as I'm concerned, because human beings will be working to view other human beings as humans, not dehumanizing them, not making them feel bad for how they look or how much they have or their gender or gender identity. But these men, they know there's a profit in it because they hit that little button. I say it all the time. Bigotry in itself is like a drug. These people get a high off of it. They love the power that they seemingly have over people that they view less than them. And the problem with that is, she's looking at me, sorry. The problem with that is that it's never enough because they're realizing that this world is changing whether they want it or not. The people that they thought would chattel have our own voice. We have our own culture. We have ways about us that we are not going to be kept down. You might try to take us out, but we will keep going. We shall overcome isn't just a hymn, it is a mantra for us. So they are scared. And instead of saying, I'm going to let go of all this hatred and harmful, toxic ideals and move on so that we can be better as a species, they dig in their heels and they justify it behind these men who get on their podcasts or get on the radio or get on their talk shows and say, don't you like it when we used to be able to tell the coloreds where they could sit on the bus? And these guys don't need to be having careers anymore. There are plenty of people of diverse backgrounds that could be in the media right now, that could be holding talk shows, uplifting all of us, and making these networks actual money. But they would rather hold on to those vestiges of hatred, those same vestiges that sent those idiots to our Capitol in January. And we have got to stamp that out. The way of the Piers Morgans and the Rush Limbaughs and the Joe Rogans and the Sank Erks and all of those assholes need to go. They need to either revamp themselves or just shut the fuck up forever as far as I'm concerned. Because I am sick of them allowing acceptable hatred. And I don't just mean racism, I mean sexism. Blatant sexism from some of these men is ridiculous. Exactly. But they know that there are people out there that like fantasize about it. And I'm not gonna lie, there's certain things from the 50s that I thought was cool. I love A-line dresses. I'm not really a dress person, but there's something cute about some of those old 50s style dresses with the collars and the cuffs that I would rock if I could get my hands on some of those. But I don't want the racism that came with it. And I think it's okay to view certain things from the past as alright, as somebody who loves history. But remember, we have evolved from those days, and we shouldn't be catering to anybody who wants to bring us back to any time. If you're not looking towards the future, I don't want no parts of you. If you're not doing your part to make the president okay, don't call yourself my ally. Because I went off with some lady about that. She got so uppity about my friend going off about the left, complaining yet again that the stimulus bill, they have all the unicorns and ponies that they wanted, and how they contribute to a lot of racist macroaggressions. And she goes, well, why don't you just kick your allies in the face? I'm going to say this once tonight, but I say it a lot on Twitter. You don't tell people you're our allies. Period. If somebody says that I consider you an ally, that's one thing. I have never told anybody that I'm their ally because that's not my place. If I say something to uplift people and they won't choose to give me that, fine. I can't stop people from calling me their ally, but I would never, ever feel comfortable saying, "Oh, I'm your ally. You have to. I'm here for you. You have to listen to me." That's so rude, and a lot of people do that. And it's not kicking you in the face by saying that your group at whole doesn't treat the people that you say you care about right. You have like a poor people fetish. You don't care about Black Lives Mattering because if those Black lives don't push for your free college or your free health care, fuck us. And you have said it. And you say it when, oh, I hope you enjoy the 2022 elections because that's the only thing you know how to do is threaten. But since your demographic don't vote in the first place, your threats are empty. And I hope you know that we know this. You can threaten us till the cows come home. Until your exit poll numbers for your ballots are up past 24%, I'm not taking anything you say seriously. And I will see you in 2022 because I'm going to be one of the voices that stay on people to take their state and local elections seriously. So you can keep your little petty microaggressions and your macroaggressions into your little failing group because eventually you're going to splinter off. Eventually, people are going to wake up and see that my way or the highway attitude is not getting them anywhere, and you're either going to go full Republican or you're going to come over to the side that's been working for actual progress. Because we aren't just sitting on Twitter hashtagging BLM. We are doing the things to make sure that Black Lives Matter. We are making sure that our state and local officials are doing their jobs. So you can have all the fun you want being a Twitter troll or being on Instagram or making a TikTok. The rest of us will be continuing to make sure that progress happens because our lives and other marginalized people's lives are on the line, and we ain't got time to be playing around like that. And that's why I don't argue with too many of y'all no more. I know some of you take it as a badge when you get blocked, whatever. Nobody wants to hear you, so if that makes you happy, fine. I mean, I don't want to deny you pleasure, but I am done elevating these people because they purposely seek us out now. And that's why I do a lot of blocking in my friends' threads too, because I don't look for these people. I don't go on Twitter and say, gee, let me find a lefty or a Bernie brat to argue with. I don't got the energy for that. I'm a mom. If I want to argue with somebody who's young and don't make sense, I got a teenager. I don't need to get on Twitter and raise my blood pressure for people who don't believe in logic and think that a president has absolute power. Exactly. Thank you, and welcome to the chat, Beezalicia, for Beez Louise. It says exactly that. They make these threats about how, oh, enjoy the next couple of local elections. It's like,
I thought it was Beez Delicious too. I thought
yeah,
it was awesome name.
yeah. But for real, they make these threats. Oh, we're not going to vote. Y'all never vote. So come at me with a real threat because your vote was never counted on in the first place. I ain't counted on your vote last year for the national election either. You know? I'm just like, if you're gonna threaten me with something, at least have a real hostage, because you can't negotiate with the votes because they ain't there. We know that because your boys lost 2 primaries now. But oh, that's a damn conspiracy. No, it was 4 million more of us saying we didn't want Old Man River as our president. No conspiracy. The people that vote didn't want him. And they could, exactly. They swore up and down we were going to bend at the knees, that Bernie was going to win. Bernie could beat Trump. they didn't even get out for Bernie. And then when I asked a couple of people, because they were all over Bianca's thread, well, you said Bernie was going to win in your state. Why didn't you turn out? Oh, I got things to do. I got school. I got work. You're the only one? You think black people didn't have things to do as we stood in line for hours just to do the primary and national votes? You don't have absentee ballot, which I did for the national vote? Come on now. They will make every excuse because they don't want to do the work. That's why they uplift people like AOC over people like Sharice Davis. They don't care about those who actually do the work. They just want the credit for it. And that's not how life works. And there are far way too many of us who are in the middle of the boomers and the millennials who are here to finally say, you're not going to get away with that shit. Now, I like to think that Gen X is a true silent generation. Most people don't even know that we exist. But we are here. And we've got a VP. Even though boomers are trying to claim her, no, she's ours. And we had, technically, I'm still on the fence about claiming Barack Obama because I feel he's more Gen X than boomer. All I know is that our generation is sick of it because while we're raising both our boomer parents, who some of us had to deal with hippie parents, and our kids, we're stuck with this generation that was raised by boomers who think they're just entitled to everything. Oh, you ruined the economy for us. For some Americans, we never had that prosperous economy that you're whining about. The New Deal was never for us. So don't include us into your hostage negotiations because we're still trying to just get a slice of the pie. You're arguing about a slice of the pie you wasn't entitled to in the first place. So it's like I said, if you see somebody you know, especially somebody you love, indulging in these forms of think, whether they're liberal or Democrat or whatever label you want to stuff yourself into, know that it's not okay. It's not okay to have an acceptable level of bigotry. It's not okay to think only your way or the highway. Compromise has worked better for us as a species than any other way. And if you've got somebody telling you, oh no, stick to your guns, as their pockets line and you're still staying stagnant and broke, it's time for you to wake up and think, maybe I need to stop listening to this person. They're not helping me. I am no better now than I was years ago, and I'm just angry at everybody, but I'm getting nowhere. Feeling justified is not as good as actual progress. And feeling right about something instead of actually being right about something is dumb. Why stick yourself in such silly stagnation to feel right about something when you can actually use the tools that we have to actually know what you're talking about? Basic civics is out there. You should know that there are checks and balances and that we are lucky that we don't have a president that could just say, I want to do whatever I want, and you've got to deal with it. Because the countries that are dealing with that right now aren't doing okay. So just know it's okay to be wrong. Everybody does it. I'm wrong too. It's okay to admit to being wrong as long as you're trying to learn. It's okay to not be the person you were even 20 years ago. The 10 I am now would hate the 10 I was when I was a young woman. I was arrogant. I thought I knew everything. I tried to be the good Negro, as I've threaded before, that, oh, I just want everybody to like me. I want to fit in. I don't want people to see my color. I love my color. I love me. I know my value now. I'm not going to let those dark thoughts continue to push and drag me down. But it took 44 years for me to get to that point. And I don't want to see more people going through that. We shouldn't have to survive into our 40s or 50s or 60s until we get to the point like this. Because a lot of us don't. And that is the true cost of micro and macroaggressions. Some of my most darkest suicidal times was because of the bigotry, the teasing about being fat, the teasing about being a woman, the just harmful, toxic mentality that you have to survive through because people think, oh, it's just a joke. Oh, you can handle it. Oh, give us thicker skin. It's not my skin I'm worried about. It's the mind that can only take so much. And you twisting yourself to try to be acceptable in a society that is determined to dehumanize you based on your gender or your color or your size or your looks. It's maddening. And we've got to stop allowing this to be. And I know that if we keep working on it, and by doing that, working on ourselves, we'll get to that better place. But I want to, yeah, I did find more friends. I am a very introverted person, but I am grateful to all the friends that I found online because I know some people want to act like, oh, social media isn't real life. But for somebody like me who clamps up when I get around too many people face to face, Twitter has become like a home for me. I really am grateful for everybody I met online. I even met the love of my life online. It is, I'm just grateful for all of you in this chat, on Twitter, in social media. He's coming over. Oh, I love you.
Thank you.
And seriously, y'all, I just want to leave off with this thought. We're not perfect species, but we can be better people. And it doesn't matter what you did in your past if you're doing the part to make the present and the future better. Everybody has a history that we might not be proud of. But if you're not that same person from your past, don't let that guide you anymore. Move past it and be better. I know we can. But I'm going to wrap it up. I will be back next week. Tomorrow there'll be an all new Witch's Path. It'll be 30 minutes of me talking about paganism. I'm going to do a little history on that as well. But I am looking forward to next week. There's always stuff to talk about. Thank you everybody who participated in chat. And oh wow, 2 of your bridesmaids? Nice. I'm telling you, you can make friends online. You can develop family online. There are people out there that I really consider like brother and sisters to me that I'm closer to than my blood kin. So I truly believe that you can forge all kinds of relationships online. So I don't let people knock that anymore. Oh, and that's another thing. I want to end with this. A lot of people took the takeaway of Harry and Meghan by saying, oh, that's what Meghan gets for marrying a white man. We're not going to do that. Because you don't have to hate who you are to love somebody who's from a different ethnic background. Who you love is who you love. Who you gel with is who you gel with. If you find somebody that makes you feel right when you're with them, that you can see yourself growing old with, it shouldn't matter if they've had the same experience as you or look like you. All that matters is if you love each other. And don't use your love to put down other people because we have that issue too. I just want us as a species to do better, but we've got to work on ourselves. We can't go out there schooling people because people are stubborn. If you work on you, you'd be surprised the path you blaze. But I'm going to wrap this up, y'all. Thank you so much for joining this week. Silent, Bees Louise, Brandon, thank you so much. Axiom, you know I love you. I will be back again next week, and I will see you all soon.